Good evening, good morning, good afternoon uh, to all the people who are attending this summit at this moment. My name is Dr. Pankaj Gupta. I am professor in Jindal Global Law School and Dean of Office of Career Services here in OP Jindal Global University. And I have got a very distinguished panel with me, starting with we have Professor Marvin, who is president of the Pace University in the US, and we have Professor Sharon, who is the Interim Deputy Vice Chancellor and a Senior Vice President with the Monash University in Australia. We have Dr. Jamil Salmi, who is a Global Tertiary Education Expert based in Colombia. And we have Mr. Ronnie Screwvala, who is a co-founder and chairman of upGrad India. So it is the third day of our education conference, which has attracted a great amount of, it has already made a big impact all over the world by 150 plus thought leaders, and the whole media and the whole world is watching this conference. It has been created with the vision of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor C. Rajkumar. So with this session, we shall be discussing about what is the future of work, and also that what is the future of internship and placement, and what are the global experiences, what are the disrupting technologies coming at play, and so on. I'll be just making a brief comment. It has been a lot of discussion about making students the job ready. Some have been saying about career ready. And we also think about that certain what kind of skills have to be imparted. And some skills are only having a certain time period, and there are certain skills which are time tested and they go on for a long period. So what is the right balance? And also, one is the making students ready as per the job and industry and company requirement. And second thing, which is also very important, is what is the inner calling of that student? Because sometimes you just prepare somebody for some career, but later you feel you are a different possibility altogether. And we've been watching this whole literature, and we've been talking about the do this and you will have that. So have been a lot of focus has been on the doing and having. But also there's now a lot of literature coming up, especially the whole discussion started with a book by Shrikant Datar, who is currently the Dean of Harvard Business School. So he published a book many years back about rethinking MBA. And then we also spoke about the being leadership. It is not about the doing and having, but also the being. And also these days we see that the being a data literate, being good in IT skills, knowing about AI, blockchain, big data, that all is taken as a requirement. But also we have to see that what are these skills have to be imparted in an online manner. And also all over the world, you see that there is a lot of different ways and methods in which we are engaging with the students. So there are some skills which are better imparted through face-to-face and that kind of engagement. But there are many models, and I know Ronnie is here. He has done a great work by creating this wonderful company, upGrad, and that is transforming life of millions of people. So we'll be hearing from him later. So at OP Jindal Global University also, we have done a lot of new initiative we have taken towards placement and internship. So one of that special initiative we have taken as per the inspiration of our Vice Chancellor to create an internship bank. So it is one of the very unique model anywhere in the world, where we have done tie-ups and association with many corporates, law firms, consulting organizations, and where they commit to us that how many they would like to have and which area they want to have people summer internship and how many in the winter internship. Because we give a lot of focus on internships, and we believe that it is a great opportunity for our students to prove their worth in terms of those internship, and also a lot of the learning opportunity. So we have a system of internship bank where we have deposits coming there, like the way you have a deposit coming in a bank, and at the same time our student have facility to withdrawal, and they will say click, okay, I want to try this thing, and they have oh, so many opportunities available, and then they click, and that is how it is operating. In our Office of Career Services, we are not only just focusing only about providing them placement, but providing them a career opportunity. And there again, with the inspiring vision of our Vice Chancellor, we have created separate verticals. Like one is a higher education vertical that some of our students, they would like to go for higher education abroad. And we have so many multiple international partners where they are going. So we have created a separate system over there where the students are giving a lot of guidance, counseling, and also for the test preparation, hand-holding, how to create a personal profile, and like that, because you need to create that portfolio, you need to create those research articles, and so on. Plus, there were some students who wanted to try for civil services, some wanted to try for judicial services. So we have created those cohorts as well. And we are also going to create a center for life goals, where we'll know that what is your passion, what is your ability, and what is the faith you have, and where you want to go, and what is the seed you have within you. And with that seed, what kind of soil is good for you, what kind of nurturing support you need, and how you have to create a plan. Suppose you are here for a BCom LLB or BLLB program for 5 years. So we create a complete cohort and a pathway for them, that what they can do in first year, second year, and therefore the career outcomes are coming very naturally to our students. So I just thought to give you this small brief about it, and that is the reason our university has made a big name within a short period of just 1 decade. But it is all about that passion and ownership with which we work here under our inspiring leadership of our senior leaders. And we feel very happy and proud to work over here. So similarly, we get a lot of support from our OCS staff and also students and faculty members. They also are one single part. So I just thought to give this small background about what we do. And then I'll be now coming to Professor Marvin to share his thoughts, maybe about 6 minutes time you can take, as to what you think is the future of work and about your thoughts about internship and placements. May I request you, please share your thoughts. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm coming to you from Pace University. We have 3 campuses in the New York area, and one of the things I'm proudest of is that in the Raj Chetty study, our outcomes were considered the top of any private university in the United States for promoting upward social mobility. And of course, those outcomes are related to the work we do to provide internships and job opportunities to students as part of their education. And of course, the New York region is very rich in opportunities. Although we, like everyone, experienced a bit of a downturn in 2020, I'm pleased to say that 2021 is a much better year, it appears. And what we've done, and I'm sure others have done as well, is we've helped students go where the opportunities are. And so there were certain industries like hotels, tourism, performing and fine arts. Those industries took a bit of a downturn, but what we have seen is an uptick in areas like internet and software, accounting, education, and insurance. And so one of the things we work with students to do is to identify opportunities. And I think this is probably not the right moment to talk about our philosophy of education, which is to provide basic liberal arts skills to everyone, but also to encourage them to pursue whether it's technology or business and so forth, and those more specialized skills. But I think the Career Services Office is very much integrated from the day students step foot on our campus. They are introduced to the Career Services Office, and there's a discussion about what kinds of internships. And we think there's a benefit even if you go to an internship that you decide is not the one for you, because of course that's part of the exploration. And we're talking primarily about undergrads. Obviously, graduate education is different because people are generally more focused. I think the future of work for educated people is very bright. I think that also means that we're going to be seeing, at least in this country, a lot of people who are going to be going back to school, non-traditional age students, because that's where the jobs are, with people with experience in higher education. So I'll look forward to hearing from the rest of you and learning as well. Thank you.
Really great. So I'll now go to Sharon to share her views.
Thank you so much. And similar to Marvin, thank you for the generous invitation to be here with you as part of the summit. It's heading into the later evening here in Melbourne, and I'm coming to you from Monash University in Australia. And it's just terrific to be part of such a wonderful panel and have an opportunity to also talk with your terrific audience as well. Monash University is Australia's largest and most global university. We have campuses in 5 countries, including in India. What's really important for us is that we are a very large university of some 75,000 students. We are a research intensive university, but across all of those campuses, one of the things that we've really focused on is industry and those industry engagements to really fuel both our educational offerings and of course our research activity. And I think one of the great things, well, there aren't many great things about the pandemic, but I think in terms of the great things that have come out of the ways that we've all had to adapt the way that we've had to approach the student experience is it has become absolutely crucial to think about the questions to do with employability and their industry readiness. But I really like the introduction that our generous moderator offered here, that what we're trying to enable our graduates with are not simply technical skills. Because of course, what every industry, what every company has told us during the pandemic is that what they have needed is the ability of their people to think creatively, to not just bring their technical skills to the table, but to bring those skills that mean that they can actually adapt. They've had to communicate far better and in different ways, in ways that we didn't have to before. I mean, look at us here on this conference right now. Think about the ways that our students have had to learn. Think about the ways they've had to undertake their internship. And so I think one of the outcomes of the pandemic has been that acceleration in the way that we've had to bring industry in rather than the idea of simply sending our students out to industry. So of course, one of the more traditional models has been to think that the internship is the industry experience. What we now know is our students expect of our universities, and what we've tried to build at Monash is an ecosystem of industry engagement. That's about industry coming in. It's about our students going out to industry. But above all else, it's been about co-designing learning experiences for our students, authentic experiences, authentic assessment. And importantly, when we bring our students together with industry, we have the opportunity to bring one another together. And I would be remiss if I did not mention something that was truly stunning to me just some 6 months ago. We are usually in India for many months of the year, bringing large numbers of students in India as part of a large global immersion program that Monash runs. And of course, we cannot travel at the moment. What we did is we offered a virtual version of this. But what we did is we focused on industry engagement, and we brought together our students at Monash University with students from OP Jindal and students from Atmajaya in Indonesia, in Jakarta. And they worked together for 3 weeks intensively with a whole range of industry mentors. In fact, 25 industry mentors online. Now, when you believe deeply in immersive international experiences like I do, you come into those experiences thinking, this is great, we're forced to do this online, we're forced to do this kind of industry engagement online. We'll just make the best of it. Okay, we'll just try to do our best. It will never be the same as face-to-face. What our people, what our educators and what our industry partners, and most of all, what our students taught us in that experience is, in actual fact, when we design this well, it can be just as transformative for our students and for our industry partners. Those students developed prototypes, they developed ways of operating that we never would have anticipated could be done online. And they did that in a short period of time when they had never met one another before. So what I believe right now is that our ambition for disrupting the traditional model of industry engagement is right in front of us. And I think as a sector, we have an opportunity to say how much we want to seize that opportunity as we draw in wholly new ways right from the get-go, right from the point which students join us in the first instance, all the way through their undergraduate and postgraduate experiences, and most importantly, especially for a place like Monash, in the ways that our students come back to us as alumni and participate in those programs. So I would really want to thank our students for what they have taught us, our partners, and our other university collaborators, because I think reaching out across the sector to creating these opportunities models to our students the kinds of future of work that we see before them. And that is collaborative, that is both in person and online. It is across borders and it is across cultures. And it's not just technical. It is requiring of our students a level of all those most important communications, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills, and bringing that all together. So thank you.
Really great, Sharon. There was great comments by you, and they also showed that how you took it as more as an opportunity, and what a very very different and surprising results came up, which you did not anticipate maybe initially going there. And you also shared about how it has impacted the undergraduate and postgraduate students. So very nice. Thank you so much. And so now I'd like to go to Jamil for your comments, please, on this question. That is COVID. Yeah, sure, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I think Sharon has provided us with a very comprehensive analysis of the new opportunities offered by in the context of the pandemic. And like the other panelists, I don't come from any particular institution, but in the past year and a half, I've been observing the impact of COVID on higher education worldwide. And I would like to perhaps to summarize by saying that there are two sides to the impact of COVID. On the one hand, we have seen very positive developments, despite the tragedy and the kinds of developments that Sharon has described. And I would call that under the category of describe that as the acceleration of innovations, of finding new ways of continuing to engage with industry, with the world of work, and making sure that the experience of students within higher education institutions and non-traditional institutions, I believe Ronnie will be talking about that. But at the same time, the other side is less positive, and what I've seen also is an amplification of disparities. And that all the good things that Marvin and Sharon have been mentioning it's true, they are available to students in some institutions, in some countries, but we have to recognize that the pandemic has also laid bare the huge disparities that we can see among countries, within countries, among institutions, and among students. Even before the pandemic, I think that the acronym VUCA, which you are all familiar with, was a good way of describing the new world in which we live, a world of vulnerability, of uncertainty, of complexity, and ambiguity. And if that was true before the pandemic, I think it's even truer for now, today, after in a world that will never go back to what we used to call the normal. And I think we have to make sure that these opportunities are really available to all the students. So connectivity all of a sudden becomes something very important. I remember in my, I used to work with the World Bank, and now I continue to work as an independent consultant. And my last professional trip before the pandemic took me from Asia to Africa. And I remember being in Sudan and then in Nigeria, these two countries where I would not have one meeting without a power outage. We're not even talking about connectivity, the basics. And sadly, and I know that, even in the subcontinent, notwithstanding the great work that is happening within the top universities such as OP Jindal Global University and others, you have also many, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of students who have struggled with connectivity, with being able to continue to participate. So I think when we talk about the opportunities during the pandemic and after, we really have to keep in mind the two sides of the coin and see how each institution must make sure not only to reach out to all its students, and I've seen fantastic experience here and there, including professors, because one of the challenges that in disciplines where you need field work or hands-on activity, virtual internship will not always work, or virtual projects. And I've seen experiences where professors would go and buy themselves the kits and build the kits so that the students could still do the concrete experiences as part of their experiential learning, and then ship them to their individual addresses. So I think it's very important to look at both at the same. And the related point is that flexibility in the way institutions are managed and have been able or not been able to react is also very important. And not every institution is nimble like Jindal Global or your institution, Marvin, or Monash. And that's also that will increase the gap between more traditional universities and higher education institutions that are rigid, bureaucratic, and those that really have already had this habit of working together with the external partners and adjusting as they go. Because I think pandemic has been about swiftness, about being able to adjust very fast, and with students that perhaps are better prepared than the academics that will finish with this. And I've conducted interviews throughout the world during this period, and many professors have started their conversation with me by saying, Jamil, I have to confess, I'm a digital dinosaur, and I've been struggling more than my students in trying to adjust. But on a positive note, I think I will coming back to this issue of internships. I think the way Sharon has described, and we've seen also the beautiful opportunity of not having to do internship only locally anymore. But if once you do it virtually, you can do it anywhere. So you can marry the professional experience with the internationalization experience and being exposed to the opportunity or having the opportunity to work in teams from all over the world. And just to underline what Sharon said, to conclude this first part, I want to recall the words of Jack Ma when he was still allowed to speak. He, at one of commencement address, he emphasized that competition today is not only a competition among people with the right competency, but also people who are creative and who can apply critical inquiry. I'll stop here.
Indeed, comments, and I really liked your focus also so much on connectivity and also on the flexibility. I think these are wonderful points, and without it, it is very difficult to survive in this world. And these days, it is generally the students in India, sometimes they were very much upset about maybe the quality of food. But these days, they are much more concerned about, the signal, Wi-Fi signals and those things available on the campus. So very nice. Thank you so much. So let me now go to Ronnie for your comments, please.
Yes. So firstly, thank you for having me here. The good part about being the last person on the panel to speak is either you can summarize or you say very little, because most of it has already been covered. So maybe I had a few sort of just bullet thoughts listening to everyone here and some of my own. I think when I saw the title of Future of Skills and Future of Work, my first connotation, and especially for young students, young learners, young working professionals, it shouldn't be linked now to COVID, because frankly, if you ask me, the future of work was being debated, discussed, and sort of evangelized even before COVID, because it's not a trigger. I think the pandemic may hurtle us in a couple of directions, some unique, some different, some adjustment, some compromise. But forever, I think the future of work is being redefined. And I think people should not put that criterion that it's only a trigger of the pandemic and it's the new world versus the new order, etc. So I think this second, I think for everyone, for universities, for faculty, and for learners across, I mean, at the end of the day, outcome and impact is one of the two things that you kind of design and look at for almost everything that you do. And I think, therefore, when you're looking at the future of work and you're looking at internship, I think outlining what is it that we want to create as an outcome. And, you know, for a university at that stage, the outcome is obviously to see that people are well placed and they're well skilled in the entire thought process. And for the student that's coming in and for the learner that's going out into the world, there's a lot you have to evangelize and think about when it comes to the impact. And I think if you look at these two words, I find them to be critical words for the 21st century of what the future of work will also define. That if we can keep aligning ourselves onto what I would call the direction of what are outcomes and what is impact, I think it's going to give us a good guiding light for people to get a certain sense of clarity. We are an upGrad, our online education platform, but one of the first things we design and look for is actually outcomes. And I think we're one of the first ones. The first thing we did was bring in and what we would call a recruitment agency into the midst of an education company. And the only reason for that is because it was absolutely important for us to integrate the context of job transition, job worthiness, what it needs, what is the future careers of tomorrow, what are the careers that are going to be tomorrow. Forget about the career, you know, just the workplace, which is the culture and the attitude, but really what are the careers of tomorrow? And I think there's a general concept and a discussion, and I'd love to hear what the other panelists think about. A lot of people and a lot of learners and students, and I talk to tons of them, is about, should I be a specialist or should I be a generalist? And is there something in between now? Is there a new word being coined, like Pickering equivalent, which really is a half breed of a generalist and a specialist? And I think if you look at that, whether you're an intern or not, that's something that I think that requires a discussion. And I think that requires clarity for the generation that's stepping out today, because actually it's one of the most asked questions when I'm talking to a lot of people, whether I'm mentoring them or just curiosity wise talking to them. And last or second last, I'd say I've been a product of soft skills. And by that, I mean that I haven't really gone up the ladder. My brother did his PhD in HR, and I'm from that person, I might look like a black sheep in the family because I didn't really go out there and graduate big time. So I'm a product of soft skills. And I just completed and launched a book 6 days back. I'm not an author by any stretch of imagination, but I launched a book on soft skills because about 100,000 students, and talking to them later, learners, working professionals, I found that our focus on hard skills is so good and strong and conscientious that we actually miss out on that. And if I looked at the top 3 elements of why they would not hurtle forward in their career after being, you know, great at law or being great at data analysis or great, a data scientist, was really soft skills. And I think today, whether it's internship or the future of work, I have to say, especially more for the students, even more than the faculty, that the round-ended person is going to go forward in whichever way you look at that. And I think in the Western world, because the education system teaches you to be a lot more competitive in the classroom, you don't look at soft skills as a very important part. But I'd say there's more than half the world in terms of half the world's population, where soft skills has to really come to a very high level to round the person up. And lastly, to everyone, I would say internship, it almost sounds like the first step. But I think as someone who's been in a working career and a first generation entrepreneur myself, I feel like an intern every year, because that keeps me really excited about what I want to do. So you've got to figure out, internship should not mean temporary and momentarily. It should mean that I'm constantly learning and I'm constantly absorbing and I'm constantly adding value and I've got a high level of energy. And if that's what internship goes, I don't think we need to keep redefining what the future of work is. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. It was very enlightening, and I think it, though it is not, you're not the last speaker, but also you gave a very good summary and also the complete perspective. So thank you so much for that. Now we would like to cover many things, but what I'll do now that I'll be also coming to one speaker, take their view, and then maybe you would like to add up, the extra points, because we still like to cover as many as possible, because a lot of students are also watching us. So one question which I want to ask you is, because the industry landscape is changing, their requirement, what are things, they are looking from the students. So how challenging was it for your university or your institution to keep up with that, changing requirement? And also in that way, providing the different kind of data skill sets you have to nurture among the students, and also the role of empathy, because it is also becoming very important thing. And many students are also struggling with, a little bit of stress and mental anxiety and those kind of issues. So, Sharon, would you like to share about your experiences? And then,
sure. Look.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the comments of the other panelists. This has been, really terrific to hear their views, and following for your questions there, Chair, and also Ronnie's comments that I just want to echo so clearly. One of the clearest ways I can, in essence, answer your question and also respond to his comments is that one of the things that we do at Monash is we really prioritise something called the double degree. And that is where students are able to graduate with 2 bachelor's degrees, but not in double the time. In a 4-year period, they can graduate with 2 degrees. And what's really important there is that the employability of double degree graduates is significantly higher. And the reason it's significantly higher is precisely for the reasons that Ronnie points out, that employers are often looking for those great technical skills, but they're also looking for all of those soft skills as well. They're looking for that well-rounded graduate. And right now, when you think about the challenges in the sector and thinking about how they engage with universities and how universities adjust to that, the most important thing universities can do is make sure that we are graduating the students who can go out there and can work in industry incredibly effective in this, in this increasingly disrupted context. Because I think, as Jamil noted, this is not a break. This might have been an acceleration in relation to the future of work, but it's not a break. We've seen this coming. We've now, in essence, leapfrogged ahead, and the opportunity now is where we go further with that. So I think the real challenge for us has been able to ensure that we're able to not just now keep up that momentum, but ensure that we accelerate forward. So I think the real big opportunity is to take that jump forward, but to recognise what's really important in terms of what has been built. And that bringing together of the technical and the soft skills, of bringing together, if you like, STEM and HAS in our graduates. And not for those young people out there who are thinking, I need to think in terms of either STEM or HAS. Actually recognising, no, actually you can, and not only can you do both, but you should be doing both, because that is where you are going to be so strongly positioned for a whole range of industries. And on top of that, I would say that not only having those multiple levels of industry experience, but also having that ability to work across cultures. To be honest, it's not enough to have a range of industry experience in your local context. This world is global. We need graduates who can also work effectively with industry when they are outside their home cultural, social and political context. We need my students from Melbourne to be able to work effectively in Delhi and in Mumbai. We need Mumbai graduates and Delhi graduates to be able to work effectively in Melbourne or in New York or in Washington, or wherever it might be. And so I think where we have previously thought about these parts of the student experience being separate or isolated, what we're now seeing is we have to think about them being far more integrated. So we need to think about our students coming to us to get the technical and the soft skills, but also to be able to bring together those industry experiences that speak out both from that very local context into what are the needs for our region and indeed for our world.
Sharon, I think it is really wonderful. And whether anyone would like to add to this?
Yeah, I think just one point really, because you mentioned that there's a lot of stress in the environment for everyone. And I just say to that, I think that's a lot because of uncertainty. And I think it's all our jobs to, at this point in time, over-communicate. Because if we can handle and communicate on the uncertainty, we've seen that the stress level does go down, because otherwise that stress level actually magnifies itself into a sort of, it snowballs into confusion, career confusion, and many other aspects, which I think will have longer term impacts. So I don't think what we've all calculated here is the, as long in COVID, we call it the long COVID, right? So, and I think we figure out what is long COVID in education and in learning and in jobs today, because there is going to be the long COVID when it comes to working professionals and people in jobs, especially young people in jobs that are cross-section. So I think it's all our responsibilities to actually figure out how we over-communicate at a time like this to remove the uncertainty.
I would say that I agree with the notion that the pandemic has accelerated trends, particularly toward technological, the importance of technology. But I think another area that we've seen is the importance of DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that includes international perspectives as well as different domestic groups for us in the United States. And of course, I think that is something that industry and employers want to see. Students who have the ability to work with different people, different backgrounds, work in teams and so forth. And I think that's always been acknowledged to be part of the educational mission of most institutions. But I think the pandemic and all the resulting and all the events, including the George Floyd murder in this country and the discussions about that, I think that's accelerated the importance of that as well. And I think we'll all need to make sure that we are keeping up and doing everything we can on that front as well.
Yeah, if I may echo what Marvin has just said, I think that another positive result that we have seen is that, if you think about internationalization for many, before the pandemic, it meant that a small proportion of students would have a semester abroad. It entailed high cost of travel and living expenses in the foreign country. But all of a sudden, if you turn it around and make internationalization a virtual activity, then it's accessible to many more students. And I've witnessed, for example, this network of Pacific Rim and universities. It's an association that has universities from your country, Sharon, from New Zealand, Asia, the western part of the US, Canada, and South America. And they've done wonders in really looking at new opportunities, having mirror classes across the world. So I think that's an important dimension that we should not forget. And just to echo what Sharon said and Ronnie, is that about empathy and these non-technical competencies or characteristics that are so important. I've always been impressed by the experience of Olin College of Engineering. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a small new school of engineering south of Boston. And their curriculum, their approach is really like a triangle. It's not only about engineering, it's also about entrepreneurship, and it's also about human values. So the students cross-enroll at Wellesley College, and the founding president, Rick Miller, even though he's an aeronautical engineer, liked to have engagement with the students on the topic of ethics every year, because the dream of Olin is to prepare students who will transform the world in a positive way. So in this respect, it's very important to have these dimensions of empathy, of social consciousness, to when you prepare them not only for the world of work, but working in an ethical way, and you prepare them also as future citizens.
Thank you so much. very great pearls of wisdom. And you see that we have been in the discussion for almost like 40 minutes, and people are just so glued to their screens. And thank you so much so far for your very valuable contribution. I'd like to share with you that in Jindal Global University also, we have taken a lot of initiatives and a lot of new innovation, and some of which I shared with you, that like creating an internship bank as per the guidance of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, and creating those verticals for different career goals, life goals. So we would like to hear from you that what are some of those innovations you have done in your Office of Career Services, and would you like to share? You have already shared some of those innovations, but if you want to add something, so anyone can take this question.
I'm happy to start off.
Sure.
One of the things that we have looked at doing is recognising that in many of our degrees, in essence, there are a lot of professional placements within them. So if you think about medical degrees, nursing degrees, teaching degrees, and so on, they already have very deep industry placements as part of their structure. So one of the opportunities for us was to think perhaps a little bit similar to OP Jindal is how do you make those internship experiences available to all students. And so we introduced a professional pathways program, which means that students from right across the universities, a little bit similar, have got an opportunity to see where they can undertake internships at a whole range of organisations, large and small, local and indeed international. And we've really seen that grow quite exponentially in size to be able to really meet the significant demand. Importantly, what we have found is the need to put those experiences within curriculum. Okay, so we offer both in curriculum and extracurricular internship opportunities. But I think one of the real challenges that we do need to keep in mind for the students that we have at Monash is they are often also perhaps working part-time and similar. So what you find in that is that putting those experiences in curriculum ensures that some of those students from non-traditional backgrounds can certainly take up those opportunities as well. So that more inclusive approach is really important. The other piece that has been really important to us has been drawing on our alumni and partnering our students with our alumni. And we've undertaken a program there with all of our final year students to be partnered with some of our alumni, and we've seen nearly 500 of those partnerships over the first 12 months. So there've been a couple of really key initiatives for us in terms of that comprehensive suite. But I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that across a number of our programs, we've also developed more teams-based approaches, both in curriculum and extracurricular, where students can really develop their skills and industry capabilities.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in addition to the alumni mentoring, we've also offered career services as a lifetime opportunity for students, because a lot of people have been displaced or are looking for game changers. And we even offered parents of students. And we also offered parents the opportunities to come in and receive the advice in terms of resume building and so forth and skills development. The other thing I'll say is that we've developed programs specifically geared at international students, where we focus on companies and industries that are open to international students. And we also developed a special program that I was very proud of to place students in internships with organizations working at the recovery in New York, with social service organizations and others. This is a way of introducing students to not-for-profit work and also for helping rebuild the economy in the New York region.
Thank you. Really appreciate. And in India also, we are finding some sectors are doing very well, including the pharma, the healthcare, logistic and supply chain, web-enabled applications. But there are certain sectors which, as you know, because of lockdown and they are suffering a lot. So initially, we have to also do a lot of rethinking in our engagement model, and also certain courses need to be enhanced, certain to be fine-tuned. So already, Sharon, you have covered about the alumnus, and because we just have about 15 minutes time, and we would also like to take few questions. A lot of people are already going to ask questions. I'm just conscious of the time. Maybe I would not like to talk to each one of you, but I'd like to give you one question that there are many times where we want to collaborate with the industry, we as an academic institution, but sometimes the response is not coming that forward from them. So what kind of innovations you have done in actively reaching out to the industry and creating a win-win situation and collaborations with them? So would you like to share some insight on that? Either Jamil or Marvin or Ronnie?
I mean, yeah, I think corporates have their own agendas and they work at their own pace. I think unless we can address what's in it for them, they shouldn't look at this as a nice to do, but a need to do. And I think that's one part. So what has worked for us is, I think we start with a value proposition for them, number one. Number two, I think it's not short term, and they need to understand that this is something that will snowball and build up, because a lot of people in corporate actually expect something that's right here and immediate. And sometimes what I think academia wants to give is a little bit more of a slow ball approach to how you want to grow that. So I think just setting expectations on timing of how things will work out for their workforce and what can do in the partnership is an important one. The first one, as I said, is really what's in it for me in a very sharp sense, because otherwise they feel, oh, this is nice and prestigious to do. I'll do it as a one-off. I'll do it as a session. And then nobody really follows that up with that. So that's would be my third one, that if there is a sort of an annual chart or a follow-up, because what really happens is that everyone gets excited at the onset, and then you have a session or two, but then nobody sees it through. And therefore, even I think for universities, if they have, and I know most of them now have, you've got segments that look at people where you're looking at placements within companies. But if you can actually make specialists for people who come in from that, I think the connect is there, and it's time for it to happen. So it's not something that we should look at as an extracurricular or activity, but really something that is a core. Because at the end of the day, what you are doing, the world is connected, the corporate and what you do, internships, it's all kind of connected. And last one I would say is if they get involved with some sense of feedback mechanism that helps them feel that, if you could do this, this, and this, then the output over the next 3 years, because we hire 13,000 people, we hire 3,000 people from 7 universities across this region, that also would make a difference.
I want to say that in addition to thinking about how we provide new employees, we also need to start thinking about how to help existing employees either update their skills or move into different positions. And particularly with places, I think I can think of a major accounting firm, a health system, a technology company where they've had employees and they want to help them grow and develop. And we universities need to be flexible, both in terms of using technology, delivering the product on nights, weekends, or asynchronously, and also thinking about short-term badges and certificates. We need to think about ways other than full-on degrees, because a lot of what the employers are telling us is that they don't really need a full degree, they need a certain skill or a certain area that's developed. And so we have a unit, and I suspect Sharon and others, other universities have a unit that really focuses on this interaction and listening to the employers and trying to be flexible about the kind of product that we're willing to provide.
Pankaj, if I may, I would like to emphasize 2 points that have been mentioned recently. The first one is that the relationship between universities and the world of work is not only about internship. Internship is just one dimension. It should be really a full relationship that includes having visiting practitioners, teaching at the universities, having members of industry participating in curriculum revision and development. And you have applied research projects, university trying to solve problems that industry face. I've always been, I remember the first time I visited MIT and they explained to me that firms would pay $50,000 to be part of the MIT network. I think that's the best way that's what we would like to achieve. The second point is something that Marvin has mentioned twice, and I really want to emphasize that the lifelong learning agenda. Because when you prepare your students for their career, it's not one career, it's not one profession, it's not one job. We are now in a lifelong learning world, and many universities pay lip service to it, but not many are doing what Marvin was just describing. So I think that's very important. In the past, I've tried to explain to people that for me, the shape of the university of the future is not the pyramid that it is today, where most students are undergrads fresh from high school and then a few graduate students. No, it's a star-shaped institution where the traditional students are part of it, but increasingly it's about this retraining, reskilling, career change activities, and combining online and on-campus activities. So the University of the Future will be very different, and those of you who will start this process will be ahead. So you may be familiar with the open loop approach that Stanford University has introduced a few years back, where students go for 2 years, perhaps, as they start their undergraduate degree, and then they go and work for a few years, and then they will come back. So I think it's very important to emphasize this lifelong learning dimension.
Sure, thank you very much, Jamil. It was a great additional points. Truly appreciate that. Since we are running towards almost like finishing of our time, so I'd like to just add a few points here. And see, even in Jindal Global University this year, our students have got many virtual internship. In fact, almost 100+ students are doing internship in Australia. We have got Cyber EQ, we have got Australia India Institute, and 2 pharma companies who are there. And students are very excited. We got similarly this kind of virtual internship opportunities in 7 other countries. So in this case, our students are very excited and also the virtual internship, the virtual mentorship, as you mentioned, they're gaining ground. But it has to be done in a very structured way, and not only just the mentorship, but also the reverse mentorship. We are also now getting requests. We have been doing program like the campus to corporate. But we also have created a new initiative known as corporate to campus. That is not like what Ronnie was sharing, that it is the value proposition, what you provide. So in this way, we know that the corporate head honchos, they also need somewhere to share their knowledge, sometime to share their thoughts, and also like a bouncing board interactions. We have done these tie with Dabur and other companies in the past, where companies and their top executive, they will do a webinar with the students, and they will say, okay, it is my problem, how will you solve it? And then a lot of the great ideas will come up, because they're looking at the situation from new eyes. And then there would be certain freebies, certain the things will be coming up. When I was doing consulting in many companies, my students were going with me, and we were solving problems together and also sharing the revenue with them. And also about the anxiety and stress part, it is very inevitable, but question is that when it is there, it has to be, if it has to be accepted, it has to be accepted gracefully. And these students are sometimes very, very restless sometimes. So we are creating a lot of programs for meditation, mindfulness, wellness, yoga nidra, so that they are in the right direction and with a restful mind. That also we are doing. And also we're doing a lot of training to our faculty members, that how to position like the online games, simulations, how to engage students in a more meaningful way. Because the student also sometimes they will just keep out their videos, and so we don't know what is happening. So we are discussing with the faculty colleagues how to make a difference over there. So we can just ponder over these things, but I'd like to ask still one more question, that though we have only just 5 minutes left, and we have to take questions, that is there any other way like the alumnus can play some important role in helping the career services at this moment? One university started a movement, each one take one. So they have appeal to their alumnus that you please give your hand forward, and it was very successful model. So any last comments or questions? So it is open to anyone.
I think Pankaj, alumni is a very powerful, very, very powerful tool. I think in the past we've kind of used this as one of sort of nostalgia, or maybe the kids come to you, or you donate to the company or the organization or the university. But today, more than ever, in this lifelong learning process and continuing mentorship, they can be the best mentors. And it's actually a rolling one, because most people look at alumni's seniority, and I think alumni is going to be young and old as we go forward. They're going to be people of different age groups in alumni. And I think a lot of mentorship, and I talk to that with most of the colleagues that I talk to, that your mentorship doesn't have to be with someone older than you. I think the best mentorship, or maybe different mentorship you're now going to get, is from a lot of people younger than you for different reasons. And I think alumni fosters that and creates a very sticky approach, which actually can make a very different one, because you're sharing cross experiences without it being top down to you. And it's much more peer-to-peer.
Okay, thank you. So I've got, certain questions. So we'd just like to take quickly some questions, if it is okay with all of you. Okay, thank you. One of the students is asking that, are the online internships really working? Are the students learning effectively? Do the firms and organizations look at a virtual internship at par with the physical ones, especially when it comes to considering students for placements? Similar kind of question is asked by other students as well. This question asked by Mr. Vishakha, Rohan, Shruti, Ritvik, and Utkarsh Mishra. So, any comments on this? About the effectiveness of the virtual internship?
Yeah. Look, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, I think often when many of us first came to the prospect that we would have to operationalise internships at scale in a virtual way, we too had reservations and thought, perhaps there will be something missing here. It won't be quite the same. But the reality is these organisations are having to run virtually right now. Their own employees, their structures, their management, their leadership, everything is having to run virtually right now. So those interns, if they're going to have a future in that company or companies similar to it, they actually need to be able to effectively work in that context. And so, yes, it is different to face, but actually that's what industry needs right now. A face-to-face intern is not useful if you are in lockdown and you're trying to keep your company or your organisation going. So you need interns that can show you they have got the capability to be able to deliver on that company's needs in this operational context. So the idea that our students should wait until a normal comes back, until there's a normal face-to-face, is to actually miss what's actually happening across the world right now. We are having to operate at least in a hybrid space, if not in a complete lockdown space. And so our graduates, if they're going to be employed, are going to need to demonstrate that they can work effectively in that space. And so it's actually right now, the best internship you can have is a virtual one, because you're going to be able to go forward to your employers and be able to show that you can work effectively in that space. As we all know, it's not easy. It comes with a different and often unique set of challenges, but it is what is needed right now. And if that's what's needed by employers, then that's precisely the kinds of internships we have to create as educational institutions.
Thank you, Sharon. You have really answered it.
And perhaps just to add
very
to what Sharon said, just like traditional internships, they will be successful if you have clear learning outcomes that have been defined, and if there is proper supervision. Even though it's going to be virtual, but still you need to make sure that the students is participating and is learning and is provided this opportunity to grow through this virtual internship.
I mean, let's all just think for a moment what it's like from an employer's perspective to have a graduate come to them right now and say, I can work really effectively in the face-to-face context, but I don't have any experience, or I don't work well in the virtual context. They've just lost all currency in the employment market.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. The question asked by one student, Samanvi Naran. that she says that we usually focus on the employability and being able to earn as much as possible, but we miss what is at the core, that is I. And hence it is important to find what an individual actually wants to do. How can universities facilitate this? So anyone? Ronnie, would you like to answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a strong question, and I can see the crossroad you're in. All I can tell you is that's an ongoing process. So don't worry about it. You'll face that every 2 years and every 3 years when you have to look at that. That's not a consolation. That's not an answer. But I think it's a realistic state of approach. And I think, when you're looking at that, you need to understand that, today when people look for mentorship and career counseling, you have to go with what you think is really going to be what you want to necessarily do. And I think the incredible opportunities out there are tremendous. Now, you may have felt, but I've spent and invested a fair amount of time in formal education in a particular field, but now am I wasting that or leaving that behind because I'm looking at that? But at the end of the day, you're going to enjoy and be most impactful and really have pride in your work on things that you know are your strengths. And I think all I can say is go where your strengths take you, because there's no other way to look at that. That's not an academic point of view. It's just a very life point of view.
Very nice, Ronnie. It is, in fact, we have a Center for Ethics, Spirituality, and Mindfulness over here, and we do many programs like Swabhav to Swadharma, Money to Meaning, Self-Awareness and Mindful Leadership. So these kind of courses, Jindal has so many great electives over here, but I think at a wider level, the universities have to look into this thing, that the I factor, what exactly you want and why. This why, this need. Are you just trying to follow somebody else's model? Or you feel there's something missing in me, therefore I need to go there? But I think these, I helped, the Johns Hopkins University in creating a Center for Life Goals, because I have an adjunct there and I had been a long association there. So I think this question is very valid, and since we are shortage of time, we will not.
And I'd like to add there, my only advice to him is don't coin it the I factor. It just sounds a little bit very different. But I think you need to figure out what's your self-conviction and what's your level of what you want to do. But the I factor can be a little bit bordering on an arrogant way of looking at things, whereas actually what you want to do is very down to earth and looking at things.
Yeah.
I'm taken with what you're both saying. Monash has just launched a Centre for Contemplation and Consciousness, and we have. I don't want to say it's the largest in the world, in case I'm just a little bit wrong, but I do understand one of the largest in the world online mindfulness MOOCs. And what's really interesting about that is being able to encourage your students to be able to pursue both in curriculum and outside curriculum such experiences. But what this gets back to, if you think about what's at the heart of internships, you're trying to find that transformative moment for the student where they connect their learning with their future career. And I think when you're thinking about, well, what are we thinking about in terms of the kind of the scholarly heart of our students? We want to give them those transformative moments. And I think internships are part of that. I think other kinds of industry engagements are part of that. That international immersive experiences is part of that. Things like consciousness and contemplation opportunities are part of that. There is no single part of that. There are many pieces that we can bring together that ensure that student comes out in an incredibly well-rounded way. And we can be sure that we're not only producing great technical graduates, but we're producing great creatives, great critical thinkers, great communicators, and really good ethical operators in our world.
Really, so wonderful. So wonderful. You have said it. Now I'd like to take one question from Manudeep Kaur. She says that, is there an inherent bias of the potential recruiters worldwide to hire the graduates from their own country? How can Indian graduates in the legal industry improve their prospects of working in the firms abroad? So would you like to offer any insight on that? Question is open to anyone.
I think at least my understanding is that there are many American firms that actually are looking to hire students with an understanding or background in India. I think that if you are part of an international firm, I think that helps. You don't necessarily have to study in another country. And I think the point we've been all making is that the world of Zoom actually increases opportunities for interaction and growth and development. But I think that actually, I think there are many, many opportunities for Indian students. And I've had people in this country say to me, we want to hire Indian students who can train in the United States and then go back to their country because it's an area of increased development and opportunities. So I think they're great opportunities, but I would say studying or having experiences internationally or with whatever country you're interested in will improve your chances.
Thank you. Thank you, Marvin. Great answer. One question is asked by Parth, and he's asking, is the future of the learning is online, and the future of work is online and work from home?
I think that what the pandemic has taught us is the idea that there is online and that there is face-to-face, and that they are two different and distinct things belongs to the past. Everything that we do now is both. You cannot have an excellent education if it is not embedded in a rich digital ecosystem. Without that rich digital ecosystem, it is impoverished education. Okay? We have to think about these things as intertwined. In the same way, many workplaces, in one way or another, will have intertwined online and face-to-face aspects. It's not two separate things. They are increasingly interdependent. And we have to think of them in that symbiotic way when we are delivering our education, because our students do want increased choice, they do want flexibility, and they do want a personalised approach to their education. In the same way that the customers and the clients of organisations around the world expect something similar. So our organisations, our universities, our education providers, we are recognising these are the one thing. They are no longer two separate things, and we must navigate our way through what that looks like for the particular purpose of our organisations.
Thank you, Sharon. There is one more question for you. Can I take that for Sharon? It's from Sanyukta. She says, not all universities are equipped with placement banks.
Yeah.
Our campus facilitated interaction with the seniors and fostered an alumni network. And that helped in securing jobs. How this can be done and ensured online?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And I think one of the things to think about is that for many of us who are now in that position to be able to do that have come from somewhere. Okay, we all had to start this journey with industry somewhere. And often we started that place with few resources. And I think one of the things to consider are many of the suggestions that the panelists here tonight have really talked about. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And every institution is embedded in a community. And every community is connected to different kinds of industries. And I think that really fostering that area around the campus and those organisations that connect with your campus, even in the virtual sense, can be the places to start. And what I would also suggest is that it is with a few effective partners that you can make great strides. So you don't need to have 1,000 partners to have an excellent internship program. You actually might only have 5 or 10. But if they are the right partners for the student placements that you need, then that's where you go. And it's a process of building, it's a process of layering, and then of bringing those organisations into that classroom, of looking how you can co-design with them and developing your reputation as being a great place for industry to collaborate with and to collaborate in unexpected ways. Internships used to be the preserve of very few fields. very few fields would factor in internships as a matter of course. Now it's actually very difficult in many places not to conceive of internships as having relevance for every course. So everyone has started from somewhere, and I would encourage that just that layering and incremental building.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So Ronnie, there is one last question is for you, Shivani and Prachi. So though it is a long question, but I'm just asking in brief here that the pandemic has redefined by employers' expectations from the potential employees. Are there any skills they value more in employees now? So what would be your take on that?
Can you just repeat that last part? Are there one?
Are there any skills which they value more in employees? Like, is there something which you'd really like to value something?
Yeah, I mean, I think today more than ever, the world is picking up in multiple opportunities. And I think, and I advert to that when some of my opening comments of being the generalist or the specialist. And I think that's also something that it's an important crossroad for people to look at, to figure out what their career options are and what are they. I think people look at technology as the forefront of what is changing and what is the careers of tomorrow. And the only thought I'd like to leave with you as a brief answer is consumer trends are changing at the same pace as technology. And if one wasn't complemented by the other, you wouldn't have a full circle. So sometimes if you feel that you want to play in the technology space or you want to play in the consumer space, and I think today it's much more exciting in many ways to actually look at both. So figure out what you really want to do, but don't get intimidated that the future looks like, oh, if it's not machine learning and artificial intelligence and data science and data analytics and business analytics, I'm no one. And therefore, if I want to be in the top, I need to have a different approach. Because if you are focused on what you think the changing consumer habits are in various forms of consumption, the wallet share changing in each geography, I think it's going to be quite substantial, especially in emerging markets or in a country like India. I think the change of wallet share and what you spend, what you save, what you spend on, what you consume is going to change. And look at those and figure out what opportunities come from that.
Which, we are almost quite ahead. We are quite out of time at this moment. And so we, though the session has been going so well and the whole time has just passed on like this. And but I'd like to thank each one of you, Jamil, Marvin, Sharon, and Ronnie, for your very valuable insights. I'm sure the students must have learned a lot, and all my colleagues over here and the people who are attending it globally. So we are so much deeply grateful to each one of you for sparing time, and we look forward to having continued interaction with you. So with this, I'd like to close.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Bye-bye.